Most of the apples are gone. I don't want to point a finger, but there are suspects. Other things need to be done before the winter comes. The stove should be cleaned before the first fire of the season. Another quick project on the list was to paint the corner of the staircase and the back wall of the bathroom/pantry. In the summer I'd visited the cooperative near Cuneo again that recycles bottle corks and turns them into cork insulation panels. Back then I'd already mounted and plastered them. Now it was time to blend them into the rest of the house. The wind had mostly died down, but after a stormy night, not everything had survived. I was going to take this cross down anyway, having won the hard-earned lesson that egg temperature was no match for UV rays. It had never been made for the outside. This cross had been initially part of my provisionary oratory, before I painted the new altarpiece. Other remains of the strong winds were easier to remove. And the greenhouse needed to be prepared for the cold. I love the crisp November days, the warmth of the light and the soft touch of the low-standing sun. These days are very different from last spring, that was wetter than usual. Indeed, by November, the meteorologists were calling this year the second wettest on record. And that is why there came a point in June I just got sick of it all, grabbed my pack and left the mountains for the sunny central Italian region of Le Marche.
Siamo in arrivo a Pesaro, con un ritardo di 20 minuti. Vi raccomandiamo prudenza nella discesa dal treno.
We are now arriving in
Pesaro.
The train is 20 minutes late.
I wanted to follow the Cammino dei Cappucini, which connects some of the sites relating to the origins of this Franciscan reform movement that sprang into the world some 500 years ago. "250 miles of sunshine were promised by the forecast. Maybe even too much sunshine. Being on a pilgrimage means pursuing an end, and to reach that end one needs to choose a path. It may not be the most straightforward path, but it is not random. It cannot be random, for it is determined by its end. And that is a feature that leads nicely into today's reflection. In the last episode we have explored the concept of religion as the ancients understood it, as a virtue that is connected to justice. Religion in this sense is the just response to a debt that we as contingent beings owe to the source of all being, God. I contrasted this with what is often termed spirituality in modern Western culture. The kind of modern spirituality is usually not about the debt any creature owes to its creator, but to all appearance seems more connected with personal development, self-care, wellness. It might for some even be a kind of hobby that is made room for on a busy schedule on Saturday morning as me time. Now, I'm not suggesting that this simplified description could cover all that people subsume under the term spirituality today. One of the reasons for that is that the modern term spirituality is simply too vague. It is a path that is not well defined. In fact, it might be a myriad of paths leading in all different and at times opposite directions. They have in common the quest for something higher. But there's rarely the pretense that this higher thing is really known or even knowable. This is understood as a feature, not a bug. In this way, spiritual persons see themselves open to all kinds of experiences. There's no need for critical discussions and questions on finer points of truth. It is inclusive, or claims to be. We will return to this point in the next episode. So it is not difficult to see the contrast with religion as we have explored the term. Religion is generally not something vague, but is aimed at a very concrete reality. This reality is usually expressed in stories, stories about the universe, stories about man. The stories of some religions take the shape of myth. Others claim to unfold in history. Either way, they are concerned with truth, timeless or historical. And that is why these stories are not vague even when they exist in variants. They embody fundamental ideas, determined concepts or purported events. Therefore, religion, which makes claims about truth and objective reality in some way, appears more concrete and less fluid than modern spirituality. But this is exactly where some proponents of modern spirituality would see their strength. Is it not foolish for mere mortals to claim that they know and understand the divine? That they do anything but search and poke around in the dark? Does our knowledge not amount to nothing? Are we not unacceptably prideful if we claim otherwise? Are the dogmas of religions not a sign of lacking humility? This is, incidentally, why what I've called modern spirituality here, really and philosophically more accurately, should be called postmodern spirituality. For the mark of modernity was its trust in the ability of reason, a trust that in postmodernity has given way to skepticism and has only one remaining resort, the incommunicable experience of the individual. However this may be, I think this critique of religion by the exponents of modern spirituality does not hit the mark, for it does not distinguish between knowing and knowing. When my latest book came out in Italian, the publisher chose the subtitle, Un cercatore di Dio racconta, A Seeker of God Recounts. What does it mean to be a seeker? Is the reader to expect in the pages written by a Catholic priest the account of someone who has not found his religion? A priest riddled by doubt, who is seeking God he knows not where, he knows not why? Well, this is not that book. For seeking something does not have to be an aimless quest for what you do not or cannot know. Seeking can be very directional. When somebody asks you if you know some celebrity, your answer may be yes. You know of them, you know things about them. You may even know something more detailed of their lives that you have read or heard them say in a podcast. So, you know them. You're not in the dark. But do you fully know them? You don't. And this is probably even true of your spouse after 50 years of marriage. You will never exhaust the depth of another person. And yet, the more you seek them out and spend time with them attentively, the more you will indeed know them. They will reveal themselves as they grapple with life, overcome obstacles, fail, triumph, as you share life and love. So you can know something or someone without claiming that you know everything, or that you even could know everything. Likewise, searching for something or someone does not mean that you have not already found it. For a search not only has as its object the undefined or far away, but it may have as its object a deeper knowledge of what is right in front of you. And that is why the objection does not hold. I know of very few religious people, and by very few I mean none, who as part of their religious conviction claim that they exhaust or even adequately comprehend the divine. In fact, the opposite is true. Take Christianity, a very concrete religion with very concrete truth claims and a highly developed theology on God as Trinity and communion of love. Yet no Christian of sound mind would declare that he understood God in an exhaustive way. St. Augustine wrote for a reason, Si comprehendis non est Deus, meaning, that which your mind can grasp is not God. Yet this does not make the pursuit of the divine meaningless or futile. On the contrary, if you want depth, a continued search is the only way. So religion can both have an element of the known and an infinite depth that goes beyond it. Now, the things that any religion considers to be known, whether through revelation, immemorial tradition, or explorations of reason, are the elements that give that religion its story, its commands, its rights and rules. We are not concerned here with whether any of the elements of any particular religion are true, partially true, or mistaken. All I'm driving at is that unlike the fluid, often amorphous modern spirituality, religions have a concrete shape. Now, all those shapes share some basic expressions across the board. Expressions that follow on what we have considered religion to be, namely, a virtue connected to justice. While the creature, on account of its inequality to the Creator, cannot really give the divine its due, it will not remain inactive. What do I mean? If a doctor who happens to come across me in the mountains saves my life, I will usually not be able to repay him in kind and save him in turn. But that does not mean that I will do nothing. I might send him a card with heartfelt thanks and a bottle of the best wine I can afford. Compared to my life, these gifts are only symbolic and not an adequate payment. In religion, it is much the same. My relationship as a creature to my Creator demands acts that, while never being adequate, will try to be a sincere expression of the truth of my proper relation to God. They will express an appreciation for what I have received freely as a gift. In religions, these acts are both interior and exterior. In this way, they involve our whole human nature. Such acts of religion are properly called acts of worship. The root of the word worship is made up of the Old English word for worth and ship, meaning a state, quality, or condition. Worship means acknowledging the worth of something. It is acknowledging the dignity of God. Interior acts of worship, which are also the most important ones, are raising one's mind to God, which is called prayer, and raising one's heart to God, which is called devotion. If you remember the powers of the soul from last episode, you will recognize here the two higher powers, reason and will, at play. Religions will differ when it comes to how these interior acts of worship manifest. The prayers will be different, as will be the devotions. They are shaped by the truth claims each of these religions make. For example, hymns of praise will be common to all types of religion, for hymns of praise are a basic expression of the lowly before the exalted. So they are very common. Others are not so. For example, in religions that pursue an intimate relationship with the divine, the prayers will reflect that. In religions that are purely transcendent, with a divine being utterly unreachable or impersonal, the content of prayer will be different. A prayer like the Our Father would be foreign to them. External acts of worship flow from and express the interior acts and strengthen them in turn. In a way, they make visible what is invisible within. They are signs of the interior. Sacrifices and oblations are thus found in virtually all religions in some form, be it the burning of incense or the sacrificing of a goat. This might seem strange to modern man, who after Descartes thinks himself mostly as an immaterial soul, but they are meaningful expressions of prayer and devotion for a corporeal creature. If you are a shepherd who lives off the proceeds from his flock, taking the first and best lamb and dedicate it to God in some way, by removing it from human consumption, not least of all, makes sense. It makes even sense in religions where it is not held that the divinity gains anything from such a sacrifice, as in Judaism. It makes sense because it corresponds to our human nature. We express the internal through signs. We do so in language and in gestures. That is why we give gifts. That is why we go down on one knee to pop the question. These are culturally meaningful expressions of the interior. They embody our thoughts and emotions. They give shape to our invisible interior life. Okay, what can we take from these considerations? What do they reveal about religion and spirituality, as we use the terms here? Religious people worship. The fact that all religious people worship is not because religions are all fundamentally the same or want the same. This is sometimes claimed by those who look at religion only superficially. The fact that all religious people engage in acts of worship is not because religions are the same, but because we humans are all the same. Worship as giving our mind and heart in prayer and devotion and expressing it outwardly follows from our human nature. The content of those prayers and devotions, on the other hand, correspond to the particular truth claims of a religion. Again, we do not have to settle here which, or if any religion is true, but all religions have something which they claim to know. Not fully, but enough so that they rightly, that is, justly, want to worship it. In this, I would say religions differ once again from modern spirituality. For in modern spirituality there is typically nothing concrete enough that it can become an object of proper worship. You might find mantras, that is, utterances that have supposed magical or spiritual powers. They may serve for manifesting what you desire. But rarely would you find in modern spirituality proper prayer and devotion. For these are by their very nature directed to a god.